majority of you who are watching the videos or listening to the podcast have an interest in finances, or maybe you're like, look, I just really want to retire. And that's my interest is optimizing my finances so that I can retire. But in most cases, it's you or your spouse who takes more of an interest in the finances. And too often we'll see a spouse get left behind. And generally, you're not being malicious. You're just saying, hey, I'll handle it. Doesn't sound like it's of interest to you. But what happens is then all of a sudden, there starts to be a disconnect. And we all have blind spots. And what we're talking about today is how do we make a spouse who traditionally might just not be that interested in finances, not only interested, but feel like they are a true partner, an equal partner. And you're going to receive insights from one of our amazing advisors here at Root, Harry, in just a moment in our new series, Root Drops, where we are dropping little bits of knowledge. Now, I'm not just making this up and talking about this today. This is actually a question that was put in our free community, the Root Collective. If you want to join that, if you're not already in it, in the description, you can actually see right below the comment section where you can go in and actually join, and that's completely free. Now, let's get to why we're talking about this today. Look at my screen right now. So you can see someone with the username Mike Van Driesen says, subject line, no choice. I believe it's probably in my family's best interest to hire an advisor. I don't think it's reasonable or possible for me to set up a plan to function in my absence. Anyone else struggling with this? As circumstances change, I'm 100% positive the plan would never adjust. I'm being pragmatic, I think. Now, you're about to hear from one of my advisors, Harry, but please know we are the weird advisors, specifically me, who will say, I don't think everyone needs an advisor. Now, some people will say, why do you say that? You're a financial advisor. Look, there are certain people who are at a certain stage of life. If you're in your 30s or 40s going, look, right now it's pretty simple. I need to max out my 401k. There's not a ton I can do. I don't plan on retiring for a long time. It might not make sense to pay for an advisor. There are other people that are in a completely different stage of life where they're planning on retiring in the next few years going, hey, I want to make sure I don't miss something. I don't want to screw something up. I also want to make sure when I'm in retirement, I'm spending my time doing what I want, not understanding tax law and the changes of financial strategies. So with that being said, there's a lot of different ways we can look at this. Let's hear from one of our advisors at Root, Harry, so you can gain some insight. Harry, any thoughts here?
Yeah, absolutely, Ari. And Mike, first and foremost, I so appreciate and admire you asking the question, and you're being very pragmatic. I mean, this is something that impacts every single plan. And to your point, Ari, we're biased. We think, advisors are great, but they don't always need advisors to handle this type of a situation. So I want to talk about two ways, non-advisor and advisor, of how you can navigate some of this. How I interpret this question is, as much as anything, how do I get my spouse involved in financial planning and getting excited about it? As you mentioned, all of the people we work with, there's one person who loves it and one person who'd rather eat cauliflower. And so how do we navigate that? And so to do that, we'll talk about the easier one first, which is working with a planner. The beauty of working with a planner, and one of the biggest value adds we have, is what we call triangulation. If we think about a GPS, one satellite isn't going to tell you where the car is. Two satellites will get you closer, but still not there. Three satellites is when you can start to figure out, by getting different coordinates, where your car is from space in order to get to your destination. Now, the question is, what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Well, an advisor is that third satellite. It's that third piece of information of seeing your coupleship out of the system of that coupleship, where it gets to be moderated and worked on as a party of three, where you can really zone in on what's important. So not to dive too far into that, because that's the work I love to do every day. What about if you're not working with an advisor and you still want to be pragmatic? It's pretty simple, but you don't want to be worrying about, is this plan going to work, given that maybe it's just my plan? And so there's a lot of things you can do. But first and foremost, it's focusing on the most important thing first, which is getting your spouse interested. It's the same rule we apply to our work here at Root. We want to maximize for fun. If we can make finances fun, and fun being the F word in finance, it's going to be great. And so how do we do that? And what I want to share with you is a simple idea. No one buys a plane ticket for the plane ticket. They buy a plane ticket for the destination. What I mean by this is that all of the cool things we talk about, the Roth conversions, the investment strategies, tax gain harvesting, all those awesome things, that's like getting really excited about being on a Boeing 747 to get to Hawaii. Now, your spouse is probably more excited to go to Hawaii, unless she's more a snowbird, and we'll talk about that one later. So how do we focus on focusing on the thing that's exciting to your spouse and working together to coordinate an exciting envisioned future that then you can work backwards on why the planning is important to get there? If you start with that in mind and are willing to compromise on that vision to create a shared vision versus just your vision, what you're considering is very pragmatic, Mike. And it's very important to make sure that the plan works for all parties during, after, and around life. And so happy to talk more about that, but that's the most important thing is to maximize and focus on fun first and make it enjoyable and getting to that desired destination for both of you together.
Guys, I hope you just heard that F word, the F word of fun. When we talk about getting a spouse interested in finances, we don't say, so what do you think? Spouse, small caps, value, what's really lighting you up? That's not what does it. They want to go to Hawaii. Now, if you resonated with the way Harry explained that and you go, wow, for the first time, that makes sense. I think I do want to work with an advisor and specifically one like Harry, who's going to make my spouse equally feel heard. Yes, I'm going to get my guidance on Roth conversions or tax gain harvesting. I'm going to get clear on if I need to eat cauliflower or if it makes sense for us to instead buy a first class ticket to go to Hawaii. We want you to live your best life. And that's what our advisors here at Root help you do. So if you want to officially go, wow, I'm going to have a partner in retirement. Once again, this is what we love to do. If you go to our website, rootfinancial.com, in the upper right, you're going to see a little button that says click here to see if you're a fit. If you do click there, you will be prompted to answer just a few questions. What we love getting to do is help people spend really their time on what matters most with who matters most. So my only request is if you enjoyed this video, if there was one takeaway, please like this video. Please comment below what it is you learned. And then finally, share this with someone you want to retire early with. That's it for this episode of Root Drops. We'll see you guys next time.